Hello, everybody. Welcome to the National Parents Union Nightly Restorative Check-In. I am so honored that you are with us and so glad that you make the choice, especially, since daylight savings time hit and we have this beautiful sunlight outside just to spend some time with us today. Today is Wednesday, March 17th, 2021. I am your host, Marisol Quevedo Rerucha. I am the mother to Camerina, Emilia, and Sofia. I am the daughter to Irma Navran. I am the grandmother to Isabela Luna, Cynthia Iliana, and Lorenzo Martin. And I am the granddaughter to Mexican immigrants, Camerina, Alejandro, Francisco, and Carmen. And I'm also the very proud wife to Daniel. And as always, I have my tia who's watching. Hi, Yoli. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. So thank you. Thank you for spending this time with us. And it's always been, each show is so unique and beautiful in that we just get like this moment, this hour to connect with people, to connect with each other. And so I just want to thank you for being on this journey with us. So as always, we have our breathing technique, the 4-7-8 breathing technique. So we inhale for 4 seconds, we hold for 7, and we release for 8. And we do this 4 times. So what I do is I do the count for you, and all you have to do is breathe. If for some reason you like the breathing is off, like you can't hold it that long, or like you feel, just go back to your regular pattern and try to join us on the next round. So again, we inhale for 4, we hold for 7, and we release for 8, and then we do that 4 times. So I will guide us. If you could please just go ahead and put your feet firmly on the ground. If you'd like to close your eyes, do so. Take a regular breath in and out, and inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for doing the breathing technique. And with that, I'm going to bring on our guest for tonight that we're connecting with. Zach, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you for that breathing exercise.
How do you feel after doing it?
It's weird because I didn't know I needed it until you do it. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I haven't stopped today. It's beautiful. That combined with your recitation of your family, I thought was so beautiful.
Thank you.
So beautiful and just such a blessing. You might hear one of my little ones in the background. My apologies for that if it happens. But yeah, it was so beautiful just to hear that family. I love that.
Thank you. And I want to hear your kids because that, and seeing them, that's all medicine. Like that's exactly what our heart and our spirit needs, because that's, I don't know, I really feel like that's why I exist, right? That's why we exist. And I usually talk about, I say my family's names because it grounds me. And it reminds me that like this work and this voice that you hear and all that I am is not, it's not about me. Like the honor of all of the people that have poured into me, and the honor of all of those people that are coming after me, right? And those that I walk shoulder to shoulder with. It's just something that's really, really important to me. So Thank you for that. And so, like I shared with you, I have my guests introduce themselves. So share anything that you want. This time is our time, and also time with our viewers. So I want to say hi to Anjali. Thank you. She said que me veo preciosa, that I look very precious and beautiful with my red lips. I'm glad. I hope that the red lips, they offset the bags under my eyes. So Anjali hosts the show on Friday. You have to watch that. She's absolutely just a beautiful soul, and so smart. Anyway, and she taught me the breathing technique. So having that said, if you could please introduce yourself and share whatever it is that you would like to with our viewers.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Zach. I'm on the East Coast, so it's dark over here. I live in Collingswood, New Jersey, which is just outside of Philadelphia. I'm a Brooklyn, New York native. I am the son of a Jewish mother, and that is a thing. My wife, my partner, is a critical care nurse at a hospital in South Jersey. She's been working in the COVID unit since March. So we have been doing that life and living that work, and she has been a part of some extraordinarily painful and extraordinarily beautiful stories. I am the father to two boys. My oldest is 8. My youngest is 4. I'm also a special needs dad, navigating that world. I'm a teacher. I taught English in West Philly for over 10 years, and now I'm a teacher educator, and I am a agitator. I live in a one of these so-called progressive spaces, right, where everyone has a Black Lives Matter sign on their lawn, but we have disciplinary disparities by race and disability in our schools, right? So I view my mission to hold so-called well-meaning white people accountable. I think very often we look to other communities, we look to fix other communities, and it's like, no, the problems are right here. So that's kind of how I view my mission. It's not a particularly I don't know, sexy idea, right? I live in a small town, I live in a small suburban town, and so it's not like a high-profile city or anything, but I feel like that's where so much of the work needs to be done, right? White people holding other white people accountable. I have a book coming out on American education and how it's rigged. And yeah, that's what I do. I work with Brightbeam, try to do some work, activism work, curriculum writing, but I'm also just kind of a goofball from New York. I still kind of hold on to that too. So that's who I am. That's me.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm super excited about our conversation because there were some things that I didn't know. So I have my list. I'm ready to go. I'm so glad that I have my pen so I don't forget anything. But so I just want to go to the very first thing that you said when you introduced yourself. You said, I'm a son of a Jewish mother. And that in itself means something. Can you just talk about that? Because I think I might have some point of reference if the Jewish community is like the Latino community. But if not, could you just please talk about your experience being the son of a Jewish mother?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of overlap. There is a lot of overlap. What was that movie, Big Fat Greek Wedding? Like, it could be any culture, right? It's just so to be the son of a Jewish mother is to know that you better call back. You better call your mother back. But for me, it means this. It means that I am a link in a chain. It means I come from something. I come from a place. Now, that place is very difficult to know because it's Eastern Europe. So, like back in the day, it was Russia, but now it's Belarus. So it's hard to know, right? But it means that I have a responsibility to pass on my Jewish identity to my boys. Now, that being said, I'm not going to front here. Like, I love bacon. Like, I love pork. I get down on all that stuff, right? So it's not like I don't live my Jewish life like that. But the way I live my Jewish life that I get from my mother and my grandmother is that we have a responsibility on this earth to make it better than we found it. We have a responsibility, like in the Torah, during the Passover Seder, it says, "For we once were slaves in the land of Egypt." So therefore, we have responsibility. We know what it is to be shunned, to be enslaved, to be all of these things. So we have work to do, and I take that quite seriously. So I'm trying to live that life, and there are historical remembrances. My childhood home in Brooklyn. There's a passport of my grandfather, Sidney Feldman, who must have been the only American Jew to go to Germany in 1934. Right, he went there for med school, but we have his passport when he got out, and it has a Nazi stamp on it. And he was lucky, right? He got out, but like it's a reminder, like we have work to do. So the way I view that is the traditions, the food, the all of those things. Like my son making matzo ball soup with his grandmother. I mean, what's better than that, right? Like, what is better than that? I think about that a lot. But I think I have a responsibility to pass on certain things that the chain is not going to break on my watch.
I just I think I shared with you I'm tired. I'm like literally exhausted. So I don't know if that's also, I'm sure it's impacting my emotions as well. But when you talked about the responsibility that you have because and your people know what it means to be shunned and to be enslaved. And I just like it just really it got me in thinking like just imagining if all of our people um, worked and lived from that place and acted from that place of really of not wanting to perpetuate what was done to our ancestors, that it's reminding me of this quote from Mother Teresa, that the reason, so it's not going to be exact, but she said something like the reason why we don't have peace is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. And I think like what you talked about, like in that it's that common connection, like which is the common trauma. And we forget, like we've forgotten that we belong to each other. And it was just like, and it's so beautiful the way you described your place in the chain and that the generational place, and that it's not going to drop on your watch. And it's so much more, it's everything mixed, right? Like it's the food, it's the culture, it's the traditions, it's the celebration, it's the way that like the way you even said your mother's voice, better call back, like all of that. And then like the key in the heart is this responsibility. And so like I think kind of this is gonna be probably low-hanging fruit question, but can you just talk about how that has driven you and your work and like who you are, like just who you are, like in all ways, like as a dad, as a partner, as a husband, in your work as a teacher, like how has that driven you and fueled you and poured into you for your work?
It's changed, right, over the years, right? Because when I first started teaching, I wasn't a dad yet, so that was a whole lifetime ago, right? Since I've been a dad, though, I think what drives me in my work is knowing that my boys sit in privilege they have not earned. That and that other people's children do not. And that through nothing but the luck of the draw, that's the world they're born into. And I think about how wrong that is. And I think about how the slightest injustice to my boys makes me fight, right? The slightest thing. And I think about how you just can't sit and let other parents suffer. You can't sit and let other children not enjoy the privileges your kids have just because, right? You can't. I don't understand that. I know why people do it, right? Because it's easier, not it's easier to just forget. It's easier to just stay in your lane and do your life. But I think about that a lot. Yeah, I think about that a lot.
I do. I feel like that goes to what you said about earning it. I think that people feel like it was earned.
Yeah.
So that's part of the difference, is that there were things potentially that your family or their like families have done that have earned that spot that other families have not done.
It's funny you say that. It brings to mind a quote my dad used to tell us when me and my older brother, when he thought we were getting a little too comfortable. He would say to us, "Don't get it twisted. You were born on third. You didn't hit a home run." And it's a rough, like, it's a little like, whoa, especially when you hear it when you're like 9, right? Like, that's a lot to hear. But I think that's true. I think a lot of people who are born into privilege, they can't see the head start they got. Like, they don't. I I remember the day when I saw it, when I first saw it. I actually have written about it in my book. It was when I was teaching. I taught seniors, and we would do this day. It was called financial fit. We had financial fit meetings, and we would invite students and their families to come in, and we put together the student had put together a spreadsheet of all the schools they had gotten into, all the financial award letters, and all these things, and it spit out how much money they'll have to pay back later, how much money they'll have to put up front, all that stuff, right? And I remember there was this one student who had done everything she'd ever been told to do, right? She had played the game masterfully. Amazing grades, amazing transcripts, amazing internships, right? Everything. And she had dreams of like really elite schools. And the only place she could end up affording was Community College of Philadelphia. And I'm not knocking Community College of Philadelphia. It serves a vital role. But that kid did more than I ever did. And I never thought about how school was paid for. And I remember that moment, I'm like, I didn't earn anything. And she should have earned everything. And there was nothing different between she and I, except my parents have money. And that was outrageous. And in that moment, I was like, game's rigged. Meritocracy is not a thing.
Yeah.
This game is rigged. And so I remember that moment. And I actually called my mother and was like, I get it now. I get what you did now. 10 years after the fact, right? But I get it now, what you were able to do. Like, I didn't earn that. I earned nothing, right? So when I think about my responsibility here on this earth is not to make more money, right? My responsibility is not to have more creature comforts. My responsibility is to love and support my wife, who is the amazing, to support my children, which doesn't mean give them everything,
right?
And it means to fight for a better world. And the thing is, and I think about this a lot, Sharif Al-Mekki taught me this quote: equity to the privileged feels like, right? So
to the privileged
feels like oppression. So if I am born with 2/3 of the cake, and someone wants their fair share, I'm going to think you're stealing that from me. That was never mine, right? That was never mine. So I don't know. I think about that stuff. And I also think about all the ways I'm complicit in all the systems I'm trying to dismantle, right? I think about all that stuff too, and how hypocritical I can be.
Well, and I think there's also, for me, like the balance of the reality that there's still the system that we live in. Like there's this system that we live in, and in order to make things happen, like you have to play by the rules of the system to a certain point while you're fighting the system. Like while you're fighting it to make things better, you still got to play by it. And I think that can be a hard thing for people to understand and to see and to do.
Yeah, it is hard. And I've struggled with the idea, like, is it disqualifying? Does it,
Mm-hmm.
so for instance, we lived in Philadelphia for about 15 years. And when my oldest, who was, has special needs, we left the city to come to a suburb. Now, it's not the most affluent suburb in the world, right? It's not the widest suburb in the world, but we left.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a disqualifying act? Um, right? Like there are so many things that we chose, and but it's so complicated. It is so complicated and so nuanced, right? Because we left the neighborhood we were living in, which is one of these predominantly white progressive urban spaces that are wealthy and have a chip because they stay in the city. But it's like that's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same, right? So it's odd. Like let's say we ponied up the money to stay in that neighborhood. My son would not be going to school with kids whose parents were plumbers,
Yeah.
with parents whose kids, fill in the blank. He'd only be going to school with parents who are, white collar professionals, but they're in the city. So it's hard. It's so nuanced, it's so strange. To me, it always comes back to the fact that education in this country is a commodity. It
Mm-hmm.
is purchased in every way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks say, well, charter schools or private, privatization. No, it's all a commodity.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you buy a house
Mm-hmm.
for its district, you are buying a school.
Mm-hmm.
You are buying access, and that is part of the rigged game. If you can afford the access, then that means it's not a public good. It's not. And a lot of parents, a lot of our so-called public advocates might be super traditional public anti-charter, but it's like, where do you live and why do you live there?
Well, and you and I both know in education, so I'm not going to speak to your experience, but I'm just going to imagine, like I knew teacher, my second year teaching, there was a teacher that I knew that just told me straight out that she preferred to work in the low income school that I worked in that served predominantly Latino students who were English learners, because she was not getting, and she would not get the pushback that she would get from the neighborhood where she lived if she chose to work in that school in that district. And also, like, so many times, like, teachers that would never put their kids in the schools where they teach,
right?
Like, never ever.
I know. And that's so hard because I'm gonna be real, right? I think about where I taught for a long time, and would I send my boy there? I don't know. Now it's complicated with the fact that we have special needs, right? So that throws a wrench in things. But now that I think about it, one of the reasons why I probably wouldn't have is because it was too disciplinary, right? With demerit cards and straight down lines, at least back in the day. I don't know. So is that a disqualifying thing?
Well, there's another thing I'm thinking, like, I think even being able to have, and I know it's not going to sound like a luxury, but the luxury of this pontification, the luxury of the reflection of it, like, even that is a privilege within itself, right? Because, like, to have the time and the space to do that thinking and that reflecting, which for some families, for some fathers, for some mothers, for some people, like, there's so much on survival mode that it's about, like, how do I, like, I think even that is a beautiful result of privilege, or the luxury of being financially stable and financially safe, is that you can have this time to reflect and think about, this last year in the pandemic. I think like, all of these luxuries, what it has afforded me is the ability to really go into my healing and to really delve into like, things from my childhood, from my young adulthood, from my previous relationship, that I legitimately, Zach, like, I recently, something had happened, and I talked to my best friend who I've known since we were 12. And I was like, hey, like, when all of this was going on, like, did I cry this much? And she, I was like, I never processed it. I never processed what happened. Because, and I'm talking specifically about the situation with my daughter's biological father, who was a drug addict and went to prison, like, all this stuff, right? because at that same time I had two little girls and I was going to college. And I started teaching, like I was trying to I was totally on like that survival mode. And so I recognize the luxury now, and I'm so grateful that I now have that time where I'm not hustling to be able to go through this process.
Yeah. That is wild that you just said that about reflecting on past. Over the last couple of months, I've started to dive into my own stuff. And one of the things I've struggled with and continue to struggle with is the idea that people can be really good and do really bad things. Mm-hmm. Me and my parents are coming a long way. We're doing some really special work about revisiting some of the times where that weren't so good. And one of the things I'm really proud of the fact is that it allows me to be a better father to my boys. Mm-hmm. It allows me to not replicate things. And they're hard conversations, right? They're hard conversations. They're hard things to do. It doesn't fix everything, and people don't change all that, But I'm able to find a little bit more peace with me, and I'm able to do things with my boys that we never did growing up. So I'm like this idea the other day, every day, right? Something happens here. Every day, someone gets angry at somebody. But my oldest, my 8-year-old, was like, "Dad, I think I need to repair with Mom." And I'm like, two things. Yeah, you do. And then the second thing is, I never had that word. I never knew that word. And my childhood family, we never repaired anything. We just went to bed angry. And so like the idea that is happening, that's really beautiful to me. And that, I must say, is thanks to my wife. And I think we have found a place in our relationship where we are actually healing one another. And that has been a real shift, I must say, since the pandemic. My wife used to be terrified of Saturday because that was the only day when all four of us were together all day long, and it never ended well. Like, it never ended well, right? But the last year has been an eternal Saturday, and we've learned how to be with one another. And it's a strange silver lining. But it's been a really wild journey. In many ways, I'm healthier than I've ever been. I mean, I still look like a schlub, but I'm healthier than I have ever been in some ways because of maybe, I don't know, maybe the commitment to the work, maybe because I got nowhere to go. So you got to stay home and work on yourself. I don't know. But I hear you when you talk about thinking about your past a little bit. That trauma work is so hard.
Well, it's hard, but there's also the privilege component of it in so many ways, right? Like the ability to stay at home and to do it, the ability to be able to work from home. And then also, you can't take away the fact that, who you are to your wife and who she is to you. Like that beautiful thing, like you can't take that away from the equation. But I think like there's so many reasons why we're able to do this work. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are financially able to do it. That the financial component isn't weighing on us, that we're on that survival mode with our family of are they eating? Are we providing shelter? Like, because that piece, and because we have the ability to work from home, we have the space to work, and your kids have the space to, like, all of that is what has made, I think our journey is possible this last year.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. 100%.
And that, I think, is a privilege that I think we see it, but I think that healing component and like going into it, like that's another byproduct of our privilege. Is being able, and like I started like with the reflection, like that time to think, that time to go into.
And it's not that I want to eradicate privilege. I just want to make everyone have it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want to just make sure everyone has it.
Right. No, you don't want take. Well, and the thing is, like, the thing about, like, I think money is that there's this idea that it's finite. Like what you were talking about, like, if I get more, then that means you have less. No,
Yeah.
it's not. That's not how it works. I just wanted to really quick. So Jason says hi.
So Jason.
Oh, I love that man.
Mm-hmm.
Love him. I really want to talk about your wife.
Sure.
And I don't know why this question is coming to me, but I'm gonna ask it to you anyway. Why do you deserve her?
Oh my God, please. Oh Lord.
Like, no, I mean this in a really, like, authentic way, and I want you to use it as an opportunity to, like, talk about all the beautiful things and the beautiful ways that you are that deserve to have this partner in your life that you can, like you said, you're healing each other. Like, I don't mean it in a bratty way at all. Like, really,
yeah.
like
So her name is Laura. Laura. And the first thing I dug about her, to be honest, was that it's weird, is that she had a little depression in her. She had a little sadness in her. And I dug it because that let me know that she was awake enough to know that not everything's happy. And the music she liked was the music I liked, which was off and dark and just, it spoke. I really, really loved that about her. In college, we met in college. She was in a class called Death and Dying, and it was all about dying with dignity. And she started an internship at a hospice center up in Vermont where we lived. And she would take me there, and we would cook meals for folks, and we would be with them. She was in love with healing others. It was what she ended up really being about. She studied abroad in Ecuador, and she did rehabilitation work with sex workers in Quito, Ecuador. And all of those things just blew me away. It blew my mind. Because here was someone who was just so decent and kind and just unbelievable.
And what you said, making the world better than when she entered it, right?
Yeah, like all those things align. And then the other things align, right? Like she loves food. Like all these other things align, right? Those things that are so important. The things that are not material. The things that are just real. Like that spoke to me a lot about her. And we traveled and so, but she's tough. She's a tough cookie as well. She's got a temper. And I think that appealed to the like I having a Jewish mother is also coming from strong women, right? So like my mom doesn't play. Like no man is gonna my mom kept her last name in an era where that wasn't a thing. Like her parents told her that Jewish girls don't leave Brooklyn to go to college, and she left, right? So that's my mother. Laura is that too. Laura's not going to be told by anybody what to do or how to be. So her work is just unbelievable. She goes to work and she provides the dignity. She not provides the dignity. She insists upon someone's inherent dignity being respected. And this is the part that doesn't fit with me, but she does it even in death. And that blows my mind. There is something, an understanding she has about ensuring that if someone has died, that they need to be cleaned, that the body needs to be taken care of, that respect and dignity is a must. So the question of why do I deserve her? I don't know, except that I know. Here's what I know. If any one of us said, I don't think I can do it, the other person says, what, are you kidding me? Yes, you can. Go ahead. Go do it. And that is a really powerful thing for women. We fight, but we don't hang on to the fight. We fight, we get it out, we repair, we move on. We've been together now for 16 years. And the times when we get to give the grandkids away to the grandparents and we go out, we remember why. We remember why we have this together. But I really do. There is no one. I'm not sure if I believe in fate. I'm not sure if I believe in predestination. I'm not sure if I believe in that. But what I do know is that when I saw her, I knew. And that there is no one on earth with whom I can be more me and more honest. And there is no one on earth with whom I just fit. I just fit. Yeah, I just do. We just do. Now it's funny. We have a ketubah. I don't know if you know what a ketubah is. A ketubah is a Jewish marriage contract. And, it's like a part of the ceremony that an honored person signs it right now. We have it hanging up, right? And it's funny because we look at that and we're like, we had no idea what we were signing. We had no idea. And actually, one of the things that we talk about, because we do some therapy together, is that's what intentional marriages are. They now that they know what they're in, now they can actually rewrite it. Now they can write it. And I just can't imagine I'd be lost without her. Simply put.
I think there's also, so I know you said like you don't believe, like you don't know if you believe in fate or any of those pieces, but I do. I think I believe in our instincts, right? And I do believe in fate. Like I am a very faithful person, but I think even just like that instinct, like that knowing that you had, like you knew.
Yeah, I knew, and I still know. I knew and I still know. And and stuff happens, right? Like stuff happens. But it's funny. When I've gone away for like a work trip or whatever, right? Pre-pandemic, obviously. It takes 2 days for me to realize how lost I am without her. I might say like, I need some time, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go do this, that, and the third, whatever. It takes 2 days. 2 days for me to be like, I need to go home. Like I am lost. I am lost. Another thing she's done for me, and how when you grow up, your childhood is normal because it's what else do you know, right? She is the one who's been like, you know what? I don't know if that's okay. Like I might say like, oh yeah, this happened when I was a kid, and she might say like, yeah, that's not okay. And at first, it was like that's mine, thank you, But another part of it is like, maybe there's truth in that too, though. Maybe there's truth in that, like, yeah, no, it wasn't okay, and because it wasn't okay, you are allowed to process. You are allowed to feel the pain of it. You are allowed to heal. And that is something that is rather new to me. But it's beautiful.
One of the things that you said earlier on in the conversation was that you have, I don't know if you realize, but that really good people can do really horrible, horrific things.
Yep.
And I think to me that describes humanity. Like that describes what it means to be human.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like how fortunate to have this human that you both have chosen to be on the journey with together. And then also to raise your kids, like how beautiful for your children to see the partnership that you have. Yeah. And the love and the respect that you have. And I also think without knowing her, just being somebody that's in that space of death, I think people that are both birth workers and death workers, they live in between worlds. And they really have this honor of being like being so present in life
Yeah.
during really big transitions, during both the entering and the leaving.
She doesn't share that much about her work. This is not her way. She has shared a couple of things though during the pandemic. He's held up the iPad for people to say goodbye. I can't. I can't. Like, that's, how do you do that? You know?
Out of love, with, like you said, like you kept saying that word dignity. So much love.
So she's done that work. There was a pregnant woman with COVID in her unit who was intubated, who gave birth, and they both survived. Both the mom and the child survived. That's your day at work? That's unbelievable. Like, I don't understand. You know, my first year of teaching in West Philly was her first year in the critical care unit, and we both would come home and be like, "Have we done? What are we doing?" But it's funny you talk about deserving her. I also think about, how do I deserve these children, who are so different, so radically different. How do I deserve
from you, from everybody?
So my two boys, who are so different from one another. You know, my oldest, who's 8 years old, who's right over there, he's watching the Philadelphia 76ers basketball play. Like, he's watching basketball, loving it. He is so brilliant. He's on the autism spectrum, and he's just insanely brilliant and has struggles, significant struggles. I have learned more from that boy in the last 8 years. It's unbelievable. The 4-year-old is as neurotypical and as normal and off the wall crazy as any 4-year-old. But just like with this unbelievable characteristic, quintessential childhood innocence of just looking at life. Like, how do I deserve these two boys? And the thing that keeps me deserving them is that the trauma that lives in my bones, that wants to raise a hand to them because hands were raised to me, what keeps me deserving them is putting the hand down. That's how I deserve my children. And I was talking with my father about it, and what I really wanted to make clear to him was that we can, as we said before, we can do bad things and not be bad people. We are more than one thing. We are more than one action. We're more than one behavior, right? So yeah, Dad, in the early 80s when things were rough, things weren't good. Things weren't good. That does not mean that everything was bad. It doesn't mean that we are all bad. It doesn't mean that childhood was terrible. It means that there was something bad happening. And so when I think about how I deserve these two boys, I think about how what makes me deserve them is the self-work that I'm doing to end that tradition. Some days are more successful than others, right? But we keep doing the work.
Well, and that goes back to what you stated earlier about your family and the responsibility, and that's leaving the world a better place. And the way you leave the world a better place than when you enter it is by continually choosing to be the best version of yourself. And so when you do that, you have to really face what's keeping you from being the best version of yourself, right? You need to work through that. And that job, that work is not ever done, I don't think, because we're human beings.
Yeah. It's so. I had a moment in therapy recently where I came to this idea. It was like, I used to think self-indulgence was self-care, and it's not the same thing. I used to be like, you know what, I'm gonna, treat myself, and I'm gonna have this bag of cookies because it's like that. I'm just speaking of me. That's actually self-loathing because I know I'm not going to feel good after this physically. I know I'm going to feel ashamed of myself. right? So that's not self-care, that's self-loathing. And so like that indulgence piece is something I still struggle with. You know, I come from a family of addiction in different ways, and that lives in me. And you know, trying to find my way in that is hard. I think because I've for so long equated self care with indulgence.
Mm.
Um,
So
that's
how are you learning to, I think that's a really great point. How are you learning now to practice self-care? Like, what does that look like for you?
right now it looks like getting my ass on the Peloton, right, and riding that bike. I taught myself guitar this year.
Mm.
I've always wanted to be able to just pick up the guitar and play some Bob Dylan or play some Radiohead, to play just some nice music. I've always wanted to do that, and I did it. That is self care. I love reading totally escapist literature, like sci-fi, fantasy nonsense. I love it. Self care is not being a sneak and eating at night and
Mhm.
throwing out the food wrappings so I won't get busted in the morning.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, it's
That's
not.
what, you know, not doing that is self care. And man, that is hard. It's weird because, like, I don't know. It's like that maybe that served me for a while.
Mhm.
Maybe that did serve me for a while. And other things that I've done maybe served me for a while.
Mhm.
Maybe they don't serve me anymore. But what's hard about it, and not so much the food, that much as some other things, like I feel like so much of my identity is wrapped up in those things. So
Mhm.
who am I if I don't do those things?
Mhm.
So for me, just speaking truth, for me, it's marijuana, right? But like I've been that's been a part of my life since I was a teenager.
Mhm.
So who am I if I don't? And that's a really weird thing. Um, and it's something I fight. It's something I battle. But my father and my brother, they deal with their demons, which are more alcohol based. But that's hard. That's
Well,
hard.
the other piece I think I will say specifically with marijuana is that there's a culture attached to that, right?
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
there's a community attached to that
Hmm.
that doesn't seem harmful.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think
Yeah.
that there's that component also. And I think, and especially as you talk about if you've been smoking since you were a teenager,
Yeah. And I
that's
think it did what it needed to do then,
yeah.
right? It did what it needed to do, right? I was in pain. I didn't know why, but and so it did what it needed to do. But it doesn't do that anymore, right? It doesn't do that anymore. And what's hard is that, right, your brain still thinks it does. You know, your brain
Well,
is like,
it's the habit of
yeah, like it's gonna help you. Go ahead. But if it doesn't, how do you change habits? And that's my current struggle. How do I? And you know, for me, sometimes it would be diving into my work. Right, I have 3 jobs and I wrote a book. For most people, that would be enough. But I'm just trying to fill. If I don't have something to fill the space, I know where I'm going to go, and I'm trying not to.
I I think that question that you asked of like that it served you.
Yeah,
I think that question is so important. And I think that delving into how did something serve you? And then are you ready to release that? Like, is it time to let that go? Um, that question, I think, is that question has changed my life and my thinking
mm-hmm.
around some things. But I love that you're looking at I do, and I love and I appreciate that you're looking at these habits that you're trying, like looking at it from that frame, like how has this served me? But to really like to answer that honestly, you got to go deep.
Yeah, I know. I know, and that's hard that's hard to do. That's hard to do. It's my it's funny because my mother is a fairly big proponent of denial. She was like everyone's happy, right? Everyone's good. Everyone's good. Everyone's happy. Like that's where she wants to operate from. And I understand that. Like I
Yeah.
really do understand because that's all you want, right? Is happiness for your children. But happiness is not a place we live. It's a place we visit. So it's,
Well, because it's, I think if we look at like the human and the acceptance that we're human, like the acceptance of we're human is that we're not, like you said, like it's happiness is the place that we visit, just like sadness is, just
yeah.
like anger is, just like all of those emotions in those spaces. And I think, I've always, more and more as time goes by, I really appreciate that concept of yin and yang, of the light and the dark. Because it's like that's continuous. There's always good things happening, and there's always things that you don't want to have happening in big and small ways, right? Sometimes they're super small, and it's it might be an irritant or something, but in bigger small ways, there's always good things happening, and there's always not so good things happening. But that's part of the balance. But that is the human experience, and I think that that's part of the shift of our generation. And I think I'm a little older than you. I'm going to be 47 next month. But the shift in our generation, I think, is around like really learning how to be authentic, really connecting authentically, like going into that work of authenticity.
And I wonder if that's a privilege as well, right? Like I think about my grandparents.
Yeah.
like that wasn't the thing,
Yeah.
right? That wasn't something you did to do introspective work. Like, no. That's not what I think about my great grandparents. They're the ones who came over, right? So I think about my booby Sarah. She came over through Ellis Island and worked in the sweatshop in the Lower East Side sewing, right? So there's no room for introspective work there. It's a trip. It's a trip. But what I do like, when I think about my boys, they are so much more emotionally intelligent than I was. They have a vocabulary of an emotional vocabulary that I didn't have, that we didn't have. They also have a racial justice vocabulary that I didn't have, and that's something that we're working on too.
Well, and I can imagine your Papa heart, like when you shared your son saying, "I need to repair with mom," like, oh, like we're doing something that, like it's working, like
mm-hmm. Yeah. but then he throws it at you, right? Because the other day it was my wife's birthday a couple months ago, and I was like, "Let's write a card for mom," and he was like, "Well, remember last year you got angry at me when I wrote that card." I'm like, "Yo, like that was a year ago. Come on!" But it taught me. It was like one, and I knew this as a teacher. I might not know my impact, but the impact is serious, right? So it's the same thing with them too. Like I was always amazed when students say, "Yeah, I remember when you said this, that, and the third." And I'm like, I don't remember saying that, like at all. It sounds pretty good, but I don't remember saying it. And it's the same thing with the boys, right? Like I remember when you did this, that. So, I just try to be a little bit more aware. It's hard though.
So I forgot to prep you for this, but one of the things that I've been trying to do at the end of each show is to share 5 things that we're really proud of for ourselves. And doing this to just start practicing acknowledging ourselves for 5 good things that we're proud of, and also like just the opportunity to celebrate each other and to celebrate, what it is that we're proud of. And so, but these 5 things cannot be like, oh, I'm so proud that I raised my son who did XYZ. So I think if you could get a little bit more specific, like specifically what is it that you're proud of you doing? So we're going to go for 5. Do you want me to go first?
It's up to you. I love this exercise. I so desperately need it.
Okay, I'm going to leave it up to you. So if you want to go.
Okay. So literally, this is what I'm working on in my own therapy, is like being proud of myself. So thank you for this.
Me too.
It's so weird. I am proud that I taught myself an instrument. I'm proud of that. I am proud that I wrote a book that will be published at the end of this year. I am proud that I put together 10 tangible policy steps for my local school district to stop suspending its children. I am proud that I have ridden on the Peloton 37 times. I am proud. That's my last one. I am proud that for the last year, again, always thanks to Laura, that I have started every morning with a smoothie that we make in our kitchen that has spinach and apples and bananas and fruit and protein. So I'm starting my day putting healthy things in my body. That is what I'm proud of.
I'm so proud of you. I wait for your book. And I know that you said that it's not coming out until the end of the year, but do you have a title?
The working title is The Rigged Game of American Education, How Education is Rigged Against Marginalized Communities. And a bunch of people we know are in it. So I'm excited for it. I'm as surprised as anyone that it's happening, but I'm excited that it's happening.
Well, and also like when we talked about self-care and like Zach, like you are riding your Peloton 37 times, you're taking your smoothie, like you're treating your body, like you're putting other green things in your body that are healthier for you. Right. Like this is really phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think like just really like phenomenal, those 10 policy steps to stop suspending kids, like the impact and putting that together for your school board. So thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share my 5. So I also wrote a book that is coming out. It's called Beyond the Surface of Restorative Practices. And I believe the subtitle is around like building an organizational culture of equity through connection and healing.
Wow.
And so it's been a long time coming. So this is not an official announcement, but potentially on Friday, look at Amazon. And so that's not an official announcement.
Okay.
Because there's no official announcement.
Okay.
So just I'm very proud that it finished because woo, it was a struggle. It was a struggle, but finally being done. And it's a little surreal to say that it's done and that it's like it's really legit coming. Something else that I'm proud of is that even though and I think, and this is just how I'm built, and I know, but even though like I'm exhausted, and even though I'm so proud that I still continue to show up, and I show up and I trust, like I show up and I trust that where I'm showing up, it's because it's what I needed. And so being with you in this conversation has re-energized me and revived me, and I'm so grateful that we have this space in this time to get some much needed, like I needed some medicine, and this conversation gave me that medicine. Number 3, and I've said this before, but I'm gonna say it again. I'm really proud that we have this space, like to have the conversation, and so proud that there's a space where you can talk about your amazing wife, you know, like, and you can share her and who she is. So that's 3. Number 4, I'm really proud that we are really looking at financial freedom very soon, which has been a lifelong, you know, there is definitely some generational things around money that I've had to work through. But like getting to that place it's a feeling that I didn't know that if I knew I was going to feel this way, I would have done it before. But again, you know, that's how life is.
Yeah.
So just so proud of us, both me and my husband, for like putting the work in and doing the work and being open to learning and growing and pushing. And then number 5, I'm really proud that I am like really sticking to and enjoying my my fluid intake. So like water is really important for me. I'm very blessed to have good skin, but I think the reason why my skin stays good and healthy is because I drink a lot of water, but it's a struggle sometimes. I'm also learning and taking in different types of tea. And so it's really good benefits, and not CBD tea or THC tea, but just, and I'm just really enjoying that. So those are my 5 things.
Nice. I'm proud of you, Marisol.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This journey, we need this time, like these times to connect with people.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that you came on today. I'm so glad. I know that we had to reschedule
Yeah.
um,
Sorry.
before, but it's exactly like this conversation came exactly when it needed it to come. So if you have time, and as a reminder to our viewing audience, Dr. Anjali's show is on Friday, same bat time, same bat channel. She's beautiful, beautiful soul. So please watch out for that. And I will see you next Monday. Know that you are loved and cared for always. Good night, everybody.